I took the job because my sister needed surgery and insurance wouldn't cover it. The posting said weekend inspections, 12 hours per shift, $800 cash every Sunday morning. No experience required. I called the number and a man named Garrett told me to meet him at a rest stop off Route 9 the following Saturday at 5 in the evening. He was waiting in a gray truck when I pulled in. Late 60s, weather-beaten hands, the kind of face that doesn't waste expressions. He handed me a laminated badge, a ring with 14 keys, and a yellow clipboard. "You'll work alone," he said. "Saturday evening to Sunday morning. The complex has been decommissioned since 1991, but the government still requires weekly structural integrity checks. You'll log observations, test the air quality meters, verify the seals on the blast doors, and confirm no unauthorized access." I nodded. "What kind of bunker?" "Cold War Emergency Operations Center, 22 rooms across 3 levels, goes down about 80 feet. Nothing complicated." He tapped the clipboard. "Your checklist is here. There's also a procedures document inside. Read it before you start your first round. What happens if I find damage? You radio me. Channel 4, I'm on call." He pulled a brick-sized radio from behind his seat and set it on the dash between us. "This stays with you at all times, fully charged every shift." The payout happened at a diner 6 miles from the site. I'd finish at 6 in the morning, drive over, and he'd be there with an envelope. Simple. He gave me directions. 15 miles down a fire road, then a left at a steel gate with a faded radiation trefoil. The code was 7922. Park behind the equipment shed. The main entrance was a concrete stairwell descending from a bunker mound covered in wild ivy. "One more thing," Garrett said as I reached for the door handle. "You'll find the rules inside. They're not suggestions." I arrived at the site just after 6. The fire road was worse than he'd described, all ruts and loose gravel. The gate opened smoothly once I punched in the code. Beyond it, the landscape looked like every other stretch of state forest: scrub pine, low brush, a few rusted oil drums near the shed. The stairwell entrance was a reinforced steel hatch set into the hillside. Key number 3 opened the exterior padlock. Key number 7 unlocked the hatch itself. It groaned open on hydraulic struts, revealing a concrete shaft lit by a single caged bulb. 32 steps down. I counted. The air smelled like dust and old machine oil. At the bottom, a short corridor ended at the primary blast door. It stood open, secured by a rust-spotted latch. Beyond it was the main operations floor. A wide room filled with metal desks, rotary phones still plugged into dead jacks, a wall of dark monitors, and a large map of the continental United States behind cracked plexiglass. The procedures document sat on the center desk in a clear binder. I sat down and read it under the flicker of overhead fluorescence. Weekend inspection protocol, revised general overview. Your shift begins at 6 in the evening on Saturday and concludes at 6 in the morning on Sunday. You will conduct 3 full inspections of the complex at specific intervals. You will remain on site for the entire shift. Departure before 6 a.m. will result in immediate termination without pay. Core operational rules. Your first inspection round begins at exactly 7 p.m. Do not begin early. Do not begin late. Set your watch to the wall clock in the operations room before starting. 2. The complex consists of 22 rooms across 3 levels. You will inspect them in the order listed on your checklist. Do not skip rooms. Do not reverse the order. 3. Room 12 is the eastern storage vault. The door will be closed. Do not open it. Mark sealed on your checklist and continue. 4. Between 10 p.m. and 10:15 p.m., you must be in the operations room with the radio on Channel 4. Do not conduct inspections during this window. Do not leave the operations room during this window. 5. If you hear footsteps in the corridor during your inspection, count them. If you count more than 8 steps, return immediately to the operations room and wait 5 minutes before resuming. 6. The air quality meters are located in rooms 3, 9, 15, and 21. Record the readings exactly as displayed. Do not adjust the dials. 7. Room 18 is the water filtration chamber. If the pressure gauge reads below 20 psi, radio Garrett immediately. Do not enter the chamber if the gauge reads above 80 psi. 8. Your second inspection round begins at 12:30 a.m. Your third and final round begins at 4 a.m. Do not deviate from these times by more than 2 minutes. 9. If any blast door on level 3 is open, do not proceed past it. Return to the operations room and radio Garrett. Do not attempt to close the door yourself. 10. The bunks in room 7 may appear occupied. They are not. Complete your inspection of the room and continue. 11. Do not use the bathroom on level 2 between midnight and 3 a.m. Use the facilities on level 1 only during this period. 12. If you encounter another person in the complex, ask them to state their clearance code. The only valid code is November 7 actual. If they provide any other response or no response, return to the operations room immediately. 13. All lights in the complex will remain on for the duration of your shift. If a light goes out in any room, note it on your checklist, but do not attempt to replace the bulb. 14. You will hear a low hum from the ventilation system. This is normal. If the hum stops completely, wait 3 minutes. If it does not resume, radio Garrett. I read it twice. Some of it made sense in a bureaucratic way. Time windows, checklists, structural checks. Some of it felt like overkill for an empty, Cold War relic. I set my watch to the wall clock, 6:43. At 7 p.m., exactly, I picked up the clipboard and started my first round. Level 1 had 9 rooms. The operations room where I'd read the procedures. 2 equipment storage rooms filled with plastic-wrapped consoles and boxed cables. A briefing room with a long table and metal folding chairs. A kitchen area with an ancient refrigerator that still hummed faintly. A medical station with empty cabinets and a rusted autoclave. The bunks in room 7, 12 metal frames with thin mattresses and folded wool blankets that smelled like mothballs. The blankets on 2 of the bunks looked recently disturbed, creases sharper than the others, but the rules said they may appear occupied. I marked the room inspected and moved on. Room 8 was a radio communications hub. The equipment was old enough to belong in a museum. Vacuum tube transmitters, patch bays with frayed cords, a tall rack of signal processors. I checked the posted list. Verify no active power to equipment. The switches were all down. I noted it and continued. Level 2 was accessed by a narrow stairwell at the western end of the corridor. Colder down here. 14 degrees by the thermometer mounted outside room 10. Room 10 through 16, more storage. Shelving units with inventoried supplies. Canned rations stamped 1987. Boxed gas masks. Medical kits with desiccated rubber seals. Stacks of paper maps in waterproof tubes. Room 12's door was closed as the rules stated. I marked sealed and didn't touch the handle. Room 15 had an air quality meter. I copied the reading onto the checklist. Oxygen 19.4%, carbon dioxide 0.03%, particulates 12 ppm. The dial needles were steady. Room 17 was labeled Communications Archive. Metal filing cabinets lined the walls. I pulled one drawer at random, folders full of typed radio logs, deployment orders, fallout projections. I closed it and marked the room clear. Room 18 was the water filtration chamber. The gauge read 32 psi. I wrote it down. The bathroom on level 2 was at the end of the corridor past room 16. A sign on the door said, Authorized personnel only. I checked my watch. 8:21. I was fine to use it now if I needed to. I didn't. Level 3 was the deepest section, accessed by a steep metal staircase that rang under my boots. The temperature dropped another 5 degrees, my breath misted faintly under the lights. 6 rooms on level 3, rooms 19 through 22, plus 2 auxiliary storage vaults. The blast door separating level 3 from the stairwell stood open, its massive hinges locked in place by a steel pin the thickness of my wrist. Room 19 was a generator room. 2 massive diesel units sat silent and cold. I checked the fuel gauge on the reserve tank, half full, and noted it. Room 20 was a command bunker within. The bunker, reinforced walls and a heavy door that stood ajar. Inside was a smaller operations desk, a wall-mounted telephone with a cracked rotary dial, and a metal chair bolted to the floor. A map of the surrounding region was pinned to the wall, marked with concentric circles in faded grease pencil. I inspected it quickly and left. Room 21 had another air quality meter. I logged the numbers. Room 22 was labeled Archive Restricted. The door was locked. Key number 11 opened it. Inside were rows of filing cabinets identical to those on level 2, plus a standalone safe in the corner. The safe's combination lock was sealed with a strip of red tape and a signature I couldn't read. The tape was intact. I marked the room secure and locked it behind me. I finished the first round at 9:14. Back in the operations room, I sat at the desk and reviewed the checklist. Everything accounted for. No anomalies. I poured coffee from the thermos I'd brought and waited for 10 p.m. At exactly 10, I switched the radio to channel 4 and set it on the desk. For 15 minutes, I sat there. The fluorescents buzzed. The ventilation hum continued its low, steady drone. At 10:11, the radio crackled once, a burst of static that sounded almost like a syllable, but nothing followed. At 10:15, I switched the radio back to standby and started filling out the first section of the checklist in detail. At 10:43, I heard footsteps in the corridor. They came from the direction of level 2. Slow, evenly spaced, boot heels on concrete. I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They stopped. I waited. The rule said if I counted more than 8, I should return to the operations room. I was already here. I wrote footsteps 8 in the margin of the checklist and noted the time. At 11:30, I did a walkthrough of level 1 only, checking that doors were closed and lights were still on. Everything matched the first inspection. The blankets in room 7 looked the same. At 12:30 a.m., I began the second full round. Level 1 was unchanged. I moved through it faster this time, already familiar with the layout. Rooms 1 through 9 inspected and logged by 12:52. Down to level 2. The air felt heavier. I checked the thermometer again. 13 degrees now. I marked the temperature drop on the checklist. Rooms 10, 11, 13, 14, all clear. Room 12 still sealed. Room 15's air quality meter showed the same readings as before. Room 17's filing cabinets undisturbed. Room 18. I opened the door and checked the water filtration gauge. 79 psi. I stared at it. During the first round, it had read 32. I checked my notes to be sure. Yes. 32. The rule said not to enter if the gauge read above 80. 79 was below 80. I stepped inside. The filtration chamber was the size of a large closet. 2 cylindrical tanks stood against the back wall, connected by a web of pipes and valves. The pressure gauge was mounted on the left tank. The needle sat just below the 80 mark, trembling slightly. I checked the valve positions against the diagram stenciled on the wall. Everything matched. I wrote 79 psi valve config normal on the checklist and backed out of the room. In the corridor, I heard the footsteps again. They were coming from the direction of the stairwell to level 3. Slow, deliberate. I counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 steps. The rules said return to the operations room immediately. I turned and walked back to the stairwell to level 1, keeping my pace even, not running. The footsteps behind me stopped. I climbed the stairs, crossed through the operations room corridor, and sat at the desk. I waited 5 minutes by my watch. At 1:11, I resumed the inspection, starting back on level 2 where I'd left off. The corridor was empty. I continued to the bathroom. The sign still said authorized personnel only. My watch read 1:13 a.m. I was fine to use it if I needed to. I didn't need to. Down to level 3. The blast door was still open, pinned in place. I descended the metal staircase and began inspecting rooms 19 through 22. The generator room looked the same. Fuel gauge still half full. Command bunker undisturbed. The map on the wall exactly as I'd left it. Room 21's air quality meter gave consistent readings. Room 22 was still locked. I used key 11, checked the safe's red tape, intact, and locked the room again. Second round complete at 2:07 a.m. Back in the operations room, I ate the sandwich I'd packed and drank more coffee. The radio sat silent on the desk. The ventilation hum continued. The fluorescence flickered once at 2:23 but stayed lit. At 2:45, I heard something from the direction of level 2. Not footsteps this time. A metallic scraping sound, like a heavy door being dragged across concrete. It lasted 4 seconds and stopped. I picked up the radio, almost keyed the mic to call Garrett, then hesitated. The rules said to radio him for specific problems: blast doors open on level 3, pressure below 20 or above 80, ventilation failure. A scraping sound wasn't on the list. I noted it on the checklist and waited. At 3 a.m. exactly, the lights in the operations room went out. I sat in complete darkness, the kind so thick it feels textured. The ventilation hum was still audible. I counted to 60 slowly, giving my eyes time to adjust. No adjustment came. The blackness was total. I fumbled for the flashlight on my belt, clicked it on. The beam cut a weak cone through the dark. I stood and walked to the doorway, shining the light down the corridor. All the lights in the level 1 corridor were out too. The rules said if a light goes out, note it, but do not attempt to replace the bulb. It didn't say what to do if all the lights go out. I checked my watch in the flashlight beam. 3:02 a.m. The rules said not to use the level 2 bathroom between midnight and 3. It was after 3 now. I walked down the corridor to the stairwell and descended to level 2. Flashlight ahead of me. The lights down here were also out. The corridor stretched into darkness beyond my beam. I moved to room 15 and checked the air quality meter by flashlight. The needles were still visible, glowing faintly with some kind of luminous paint. The readings were the same. The bathroom was at the end of the corridor. I walked toward it, counting my steps. 42 steps from the stairwell to the bathroom door. I opened the door. The bathroom lights were on. Bright fluorescence humming loudly, illuminating white tile and 2 stall doors and a row of sinks with rusted faucets. I stood in the doorway, flashlight in hand, staring at the impossible brightness. The rules said not to use this bathroom between midnight and 3 a.m. It was 3:04 now. I stepped inside. The door swung shut behind me. One of the stall doors was closed. I walked to the sinks and set the flashlight on the counter. In the mirror, my face looked washed out under the fluorescence. Shadows pooled under my eyes. Behind me, in the mirror's reflection, the closed stall door swung open. No one came out. I turned. The stall was empty. White porcelain toilet, no seat, rust stains in the bowl. The door hung motionless now, halfway open. I picked up the flashlight and left the bathroom. In the corridor, the darkness was complete. Again. I made my way back to the stairwell, counting steps, 42 steps, the number matched. When I climbed back to level 1, the lights were on again. All of them. The operations room, the corridor, every room I could see from the doorway. As if nothing had happened. I sat at the desk and wrote, "Power failure 3 Norn 3:05 a.m. approx. All lights level 1 and 2, bathroom level 2 lights remained on the checklist." At 3:20, the radio crackled. A voice came through, faint and distorted. Male, older. "November 7 actual, do you copy?" I picked up the radio. The rules said the only valid clearance code was November 7 actual. But the rule was about encountering another person in the complex, not about radio transmissions. I keyed the mic. "This is weekend inspection, go ahead." Silence. Then, "Inspection, confirm your position." "Operations room level 1. Copy, remain in position, do not proceed to level 3 until further notice." I checked the rules again. Nothing about staying in the operations room outside the 10 to 10:15 window. Nothing about not proceeding to level 3 except if a blast door was open. "Can you clarify?" I said into the radio. No response. I waited 2 minutes and tried again. "November 7 actual, this is inspection, requesting clarification." Static, nothing more. At 4 a.m. I was supposed to begin the third inspection round. I looked at the rules. Your third and final round begins at 4 a.m. Do not deviate from these times by more than 2 minutes. The radio instruction had said not to proceed to level 3, but the rules required a full inspection. I decided the written rules took precedence. At exactly 4 a.m., I started the third round. Level 1 was the same. I moved through it methodically, checking each room. In room 7, one of the blankets on the disturbed bunks was now folded differently. A tight hospital corner instead of the loose fold I'd seen before. I noted it and continued. Level 2. Rooms 10 through 18. The air quality meters showed the same readings. The water filtration gauge in room 18 now read 61 psi. It had been 79 during the second round. The needle was dropping. I wrote it down and continued to level 3. At the top of the metal staircase, I stopped. The blast door was closed. It had been open, pinned in place during both previous rounds. Now it was fully shut, its massive surface flush with the reinforced frame. The rule said if any blast door on level 3 is open, do not proceed past it. It didn't say what to do if a blast door that had been open was now closed. I tried the handle. Locked. Key number 9 opened blast doors. I found it on the ring and inserted it into the lock. It turned smoothly. I pulled the handle and the door swung open on its heavy hinges, revealing the metal staircase descending into level 3. The lights down there were on. I descended. The temperature on level 3 was colder than before. My breath misted heavily. I checked the rooms in order. Generator room, fuel gauge still half full. Command bunker, undisturbed. Room 21, air quality meter normal. Room 22, the restricted archive. The door was ajar. I had locked it during the second round. I was certain I'd used key 11, heard the lock click, tested the handle. Now it stood open about 6 inches. I pushed it wider and shone my flashlight inside. The filing cabinets lined the walls as before. The safe in the corner sat undisturbed, red tape intact. But there was something on the floor that hadn't been there before, a folded piece of paper. I picked it up. It was old, yellowed at the edges, the texture brittle. I unfolded it carefully. Handwritten text in blue ink, neat and precise. Amendment to weekend inspection protocol, additional rules. Effective immediately 15. If the blast door to level 3 closes during your shift, do not open it before 5 a.m. If you have already opened it, proceed with caution and complete your inspection quickly. 16. Room 22's door may be found open. If this occurs, verify the safe seal is intact, then lock the door immediately. Do not read any documents found inside the room. 17. If you receive radio communication using the code November 7 actual, acknowledge but do not follow instructions that contradict the written rules. 18. Between 4:30 and 5:30 a.m., You may hear knocking on the exterior hatch. Do not respond. Do not open the hatch. The knocking will stop on its own. 19. During your final round, if you count footsteps and reach a number higher than 12, leave the complex immediately via the primary exit. Do not return to the operations room. Your shift will be considered complete. 20. If the ventilation hum stops and does not resume after 3 minutes, go to room 20 and close its door. Wait inside until 6 a.m. I read it twice. The paper felt authentic, old enough to match the complex's era, but the rules referenced things that had just happened to me. The blast door closing, room 22's door being open, the radio transmission with the November 7 actual code. I looked at the safe. The red tape was intact, signature undisturbed. I folded the paper, put it in my pocket, and locked room 22 behind me. Key 11 turned smoothly. I completed the rest of level 3 quickly. All clear. Back up the metal staircase to level 2, then to level 1. It was 4:41 when I returned to the operations room. At 4:53, the knocking started. It came from above, from the direction of the exterior hatch at the top of the concrete stairwell. Rhythmic. 3 knocks, pause, 3 knocks, pause, patient. I sat at the desk and listened. The amendment said not to respond, not to open the hatch. The knocking will stop on its own. 3 knocks, pause, 3 knocks, pause. At 5:12, it stopped. Tulu filled out the remainder of the checklist, documenting the 3rd round in detail. Blast door found closed. Room 22 door found open. Amendment list discovered. Knocking at exterior hatch from 4:53 to 5:12. At 5:41, I heard footsteps again. They came from level 2. Slow, steady, ascending the stairwell. I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 13 steps. The amendment said if I counted higher than 12 during the final round, leave immediately via the primary exit. I grabbed the clipboard, the radio, and my thermos. I walked out of the operations room through the corridor to the concrete stairwell and climbed the 32 steps to the exterior hatch. Key number 7 unlocked it. I pushed it open and stepped out into the pre-dawn darkness. The air was cold and clean, smelling of pine. I locked the hatch behind me, walked to my car, and drove out. At the diner, Garrett was waiting in his usual booth. He had coffee and the envelope ready. I sat down and slid the checklist across the table. He looked it over, nodding occasionally, stopping to read my notes about the power failure and the closed blast door. "You did fine," he said. He pushed the envelope toward me. $800 in 50s. I pulled the amendment list from my pocket and set it on the table. "I found this in room 22. He picked it up, unfolded it, and read it without expression. Then he refolded it and put it in his jacket pocket. "Sometimes the complex leaves things for inspectors," he said. "Consider it part of the briefing. The rules reference things that happened during my shift," I said. "The blast door closing, the radio call. Then they were useful." He finished his coffee. "You'll be back next Saturday?" I thought about my sister's surgery, the bills, the fact that I'd followed the rules and survived 12 hours in an empty bunker. "Yes," I said. He nodded. "Good. The complex appreciates consistency." I worked the next 4 weekends. Each shift had variations. Different rooms with open doors, different sequences of footsteps, different radio transmissions. Twice I found additional amendment sheets, always in room 22, always handwritten on old paper. I followed every rule precisely. On the 5th weekend, I arrived to find a new inspector's badge waiting on the operations room desk, along with a handwritten note, "Training a replacement. You'll overlap 1 shift for transition. He starts tonight at 8 p.m. Show him the core rules. Make sure he understands about the footsteps." The new inspector arrived at 8:15. Younger than me, early 20s, nervous hands. His name was Cole. I walked him through level 1, showing him the checklist routine, the radio protocol, the time windows. At 9:43, we were on level 2 when I heard footsteps. I held up my hand. Cole stopped. I counted silently. 8 steps. They stopped. "What was that?" Cole whispered. "Footsteps," I said. "Count them. If you count more than 8, return to the operations room and wait 5 minutes. "What is it?" "I don't know. Follow the rules and you'll be fine." We completed the round together. At 10 p.m., we sat in the operations room with the radio on channel 4. Cole kept glancing at the corridor. "How long have you been doing this?" he asked. 5 weeks. "Have you ever seen anyone else down here?" I thought about the question. No. At 12:30, we started the second round. On level 3, the blast door was open as usual. We inspected the rooms together. Everything normal until we reached room 22. The door was open. Cole moved toward it and I caught his arm. "Don't read any documents you find inside," I said. "Why not?" "It's one of the amendments. Just verify the safe and lock the door." He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. Inside there was no paper on the floor this time. The safe seal was intact. Cole checked it and we locked the room behind us. At 3 a.m. the lights went out again. We sat in darkness in the operations room, flashlights on. "Is this normal?" Cole asked. "It happens. Stay here. They'll come back on." At 3:06 the lights returned. Cole looked shaken. "I don't know if I can do this," he said. I handed him the amendment lists I'd collected. "Read these. Follow them exactly. The complex has rules for a reason." He read them by flashlight, his face pale in the beam. At 6 a.m. we left together. At the diner, Garrett gave us each an envelope. Cole was quiet, drinking coffee and staring at the table. "You good for next week?" Garrett asked him. Cole nodded slowly. "Yeah, I'm good." I worked one more shift after that. Then Garrett told me they were rotating inspectors. He gave me a bonus, an extra $200, and thanked me for my service. My sister's surgery was scheduled. The bills were covered. On my last night, I did the rounds alone. Everything was routine until the 3rd inspection. On level 3, I found another amendment in room 22. Amendment to Weekend Inspection Protocol. Additional rules, effective immediately 21. If you train a replacement, give them the amendment lists. Do not explain what the complex is, they will learn. 22. Your final shift will feel routine, it is not. Pay attention during the 3rd round. 23. After you leave, do not discuss the complex with anyone except other inspectors. The complex remembers. I folded the paper and put it with the others. In the operations room, I sat at the desk and wrote my own note for the next inspector. I kept it simple. Follow the rules exactly, count carefully, trust the amendments. The complex will test you, but it's fair. If you respect it, you'll be fine. I left the note in the center desk drawer. At 6 a.m., I climbed the stairs, locked the hatch, and drove to the diner for the last time. Garrett was there. He gave me the final envelope and shook my hand. "The complex appreciated your work," he said. I nodded. "What is it, really? That place?" He smiled, a thin expression that didn't reach his eyes. "A bunker that requires inspection. Nothing more." I drove home as the sun rose over the state forest. I never went back. But sometimes, late at night, I think about the footsteps. The way they always stopped at 8 unless they didn't. The blast door that closed itself, the lights that knew when to go out. And I wonder who's down there now, counting steps in the dark, following rules written by people who understood that some places have their own logic. Some places demand respect. Some places remember. The complex is still there, 80 feet under the pine trees. The inspections continue every weekend. New people take the job for their own reasons. Debt, desperation, curiosity. They read the rules. They count the footsteps. They learn. And the complex, patient, and timeless waits beneath the earth, teaching anyone who'll listen that survival is simple. Follow the procedures, trust the amendments, and never ever forget to count.